This is the second part of our look at the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy, Book 1, The Three-Body Problem. Okay, so full-on spoilers of Book 1, The Three-Body Problem. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
If you're still here.
I feel like the first book is the one where like I really feel like you should go in completely blind, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Second and third book, even if you know kind of like a outline of the story, you can still enjoy them. First one, I think it's one of those books where it's really, really fun if you go and you don't know anything, because then everything is like, what the fuck? What is happening? Everything is so surprising. So
it's just really like thick and a lot happens and it's like a lot of ideas and thoughts. So I feel like even if you like listen to this whole thing and then you decide to read it, it still doesn't do much, I think.
Yeah.
Like if you want to just like either skip the first book or read the book afterwards.
Yeah.
And then just get into it in the second and third. That's the like where shit goes down hard parts. So I think I am unable to sum up this plot in short. That's why I'm gonna just go step by step. I'm just gonna talk about whatever comes up and what we liked and didn't like and stuff like that.
all right.
And I'm gonna give some depression score for our connoisseur of despair.
Yes.
And yes, so it starts with I'm gonna butcher all these names, so please say them too, so we can both butcher.
Like, okay, so the first of the main characters, so it starts during the Cultural Revolution period in China. For those who don't know, was this period in the 70s when Mao decided that essentially they had to cancel all of like Buddhism and things like that. They destroyed a bunch of temples and monuments, and there was civil war everywhere and cannibalism. It's a very dark period in modern history.
Yes.
And the start is very dark, and there is our main character, Ye Wenjie.
Okay. So I read it as Ye Wenjie.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's just keep to your pronunciation.
Yeah, Miss Ye. She's astrophysicist, and during this time universities are being closed because, you know, physics and science and like in general like knowledge is against the against communism, I guess. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
Her father, who's an astrophysicist, is considered an enemy of the people.
Exactly.
And gets killed. Also, actually, the book starts with a young lady getting killed, getting shot.
Oh my God.
And at the beginning, you're like, oh, why are you telling me this? Like, who cares? She's just like a crazy girl who was part of these Red Brigades who were like essentially fundamentalist,
I completely blocked this
communists,
out.
like very crazy people. And she got killed, and then you find out that actually she was Ye Wenjie's sister.
Yeah, I remember that now.
But you learn that like much later.
so you might have heard some sound effects.
Yes.
And I don't know if I can keep even count it already. It's like 7 depression points.
Yes. Anyway. So, you know, before we are even introduced to Ye Wenjie, her sister gets killed, and then her father gets killed because he's against communism, because he thinks that Einstein is right.
Yeah, exactly. That was
essentially. Yeah. And he refuses to give up his scientific beliefs.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's such a short time ago, this happening.
Yeah, it's like 50 years ago. Yes, and then
already dread, emotional, existential dread already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, history is full of existential dread. But yeah, our dear Ye Wenjie, because after her father is killed in front of her, with her mother essentially testifying against him.
Yeah, so she's decided or branded as a traitor.
Yes, is sent to labor work in Inner Mongolia. And then she has to cut wood.
Okay, I was afraid I forgot she cut off his fingers or something.
No. She has to cut wood. And then she meets a guy. She meets a guy. Met is not English.
Yeah.
She meets a guy, and this guy gives her a book, which is a real book.
Yeah, which I didn't know. I thought it was fake. The name is Silent Spring. It's a book about environmentalism.
Yes, it talks about environmentalism and how humanity, you know, kind of like considers itself outside of the environment and outside of like the ecosystem. But it's anyway, she's really impressed by this. But then the communist police finds out that she has read this book, and so she gets double branded as a traitor. Like she gets an additional punishment.
Yeah, so she just scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yes,
sister died, father died, everything.
She's a squared traitor.
It's awful. Like the start of this book is so bad.
Yeah.
And before I go on, I just want to say this is the first moment that it happened to me with this feeling of disappointing truths.
Oh, okay.
And that was the quote I have here about the iceberg floating on the sea.
Ah, yes. That's a very good quote. Yes. That is a very, very good quote, I think.
So, in the quote, she explains that the relationship between humanity and evil is similar to an iceberg floating in the ocean. And she says both the ocean and the iceberg are made of the same material. And the thing that makes it separate, or the iceberg seems separate, only because it's in a different form. And in reality, it's all part of the same vast ocean.
Yes.
Which might not sound as like profound or meaningful, but in the context of what's happening at the time in her life,
yes,
it's just so dark.
Yeah. And so she's going through a very bad time.
Yes.
And she gets offered to be saved by a communist police officer.
I like how you're making these communist B-movie villains.
Yes, and she says, if you denounce all these people and you essentially say that your father was a traitor, then your name will be cleaned and you can become a good communist. But she says, fuck you.
Yeah.
So the communist police gets very angry and they ship her to this secret base.
Well, they give her like an ultimatum, right? They tell her like you can work for us in the secret base, or I'm not sure we'll kill you, or we'll like send you back to the labor camps or something. They give her like a choice she cannot refuse. She'll do something awful. Either she'll be like lynched or like worked to death, or she'll go into the secret base, which is based on astronomical research. Yes. And because she's got background in physics, that's also why her father was talking about Einstein.
Yes, and especially, so something that was relevant is that when she graduated, she published a paper about the solar radiation, and part of the research that was being done at this secret base, communist secret base, was about solar radiation. So that was relevant, and so that's why they wanted to use her as a slave. As a communist slave.
There's nothing about sci-fi. This book has barely started, and we're already up to insert number. I'll put it here. I'm just gonna do like ding, ding, ding every time I have something bad happens for depression.
Yes.
Yeah. So somehow I forgot these details, but she marries the guy.
Yeah. So this is talked about later during the story because the story goes on to parallel lines. One is the one in the past, which is Ye Wenjie's story, and the other one is the one in the present, which is Wen Miao's story. Ye Wenjie, continuing along like her side of the story, she gets to this base, and at the beginning she's just like the lowest of the low. She's just essentially like a golfer. Yeah. And she was convinced to work here by one of her father's former student, who's the head scientist at this base. But actually, she was lied to by this guy because actually he didn't mention that if she comes here, she will never be able to leave. Yeah, because that's a big... the main topic of this of research of this base is aliens. And essentially, this is Communist Area 51.
And they hide it as they're testing super strong radio waves or something.
Yes.
They're like frying birds with microwave.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the satellite is like sending such a strong signal that it's frying the trees around it. Birds flying away and stuff, and the snow doesn't like...
Yeah, something weird happens.
Yeah, so that's like the first mystery. They just keep melting the snow and the birds keep dying or something. Yeah. Is there like a scene where a bunch of birds fall dead or not?
I don't remember that, but like there were like before when she was still like doing forced labor, she was hearing all sorts of rumors regarding this base. Which, by the way, is called Red Coast, even though it's in the middle of the mountains and like the closest sea is like
I was thinking why
3,000 kilometers away. Like,
is there some significance we don't know in the
I don't know.
Chinese meaning of the word?
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
But yeah, anyway, she was tricked by this guy, but this guy actually falls for her because she's so cute and smart. Yeah, he falls for her and they get married.
So it's the same guy who betrayed her in the beginning.
Yes.
So
no. Who got betrayed?
I'm just so confused to all these characters because it's too hazy for me. It's too long ago. So there's the guy who she met because of the book.
There was a journalist.
The journalist?
And the guy, like, he was just a guy.
So that one's gone.
Yes.
No depression points. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, they get married, even though she clearly is not interested in him.
So by the guy, the husband, we mean a worker at the Red Base. Red Coast.
Yes. Yeah, the head scientist of Red Base. Yeah, Wenjie finds out that the main purpose of the base is to contact aliens. And the first message they tried to send aliens was hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
It was so funny that that's why I think like the first book is much less censored, because it was clearly like satirical.
Okay,
from our point of view, because essentially it was like, communist is good, and aliens, we are communist people of Earth. We are fighting the good fight against the capitalists. You should help us and fight in the name of the revolution. Yeah. But then even the communist army realizes how ridiculous this is. And they change it to a normal message like, we are the people of Earth. Yeah, we are humans. This is who we are. Of course, this is like 70s technology. So, like, Wenjie realizes that like this message isn't going anywhere. It's not even leaving the solar system. So essentially it's impossible that anyone is catching the signal. Yep. But then she finds out that you can send it to the sun, and the sun will amplify it and send it to the galaxy.
Which I looked into if it's possible, like anything along the lines of this. So when they explain the physics, they say the magnetic force or whatever the sun is radiating, if you send radio waves that are really strong directly at it, it will like reverberate, copy the radio waves, and then in all directions from the sun with sheer power just send it to space in a much stronger signal. So by this she can send it very far in the galaxy, which I read that theoretically something similar has been researched, but not to this extent, of course. So there is some basis of real physics, but I am not qualified to say if this is complete nonsense.
Anyway, she sent this message and she gets a reply.
And the reply is the first time this book is giving you like what. Like, this is not your run-of-the-mill sci-fi story.
Yes.
This is gonna be something different. Yes. So the message is...
Yeah, the message is, don't reply. Like, stop sending messages.
Exactly.
Shut up.
Yes.
I'm a peaceful guy, but the other people on my planet will kill you all if they get another message from you.
-5 depression points for a pacifist.
Yeah.
Alien.
Pacifist alien. Of course, our dear Wenjie, she has gone through a little bit of a trauma.
Yeah, and speaking of the analogy with the ocean and the iceberg.
Yes.
You might expect what she's gonna do.
Yeah, so she's like, well...
But she like builds up to this because she keeps pondering about it, and then another depression moment happens with her husband.
No, but that's later. That's later.
First,
like, there are a few other things. First, there is the fact that she sends the message to say, kill them all. Like, she sends another message actually asking this alien civilization to come to Earth. And
so she just wants to have humanity die.
Like, it's not clear. At that point, it seems like she wants humanity to die. But if you look at the rest of the book, it sounds like she actually wanted humanity to improve. And she thought that the only way humanity could improve was by being faced with an external force.
The way I took it was that she just wants everything to be dead.
I feel like at that point, that's what she wanted. But then she kind of changed her mind.
Kind of changed her mind, but the intention was this when she did it.
And then immediately after essentially condemning humanity, that's what the book says, she finds out she's pregnant.
I thought it was before. Okay.
No. She finds out immediately after she sends the message.
Ding, 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 depression.
Yeah, and then she decides the boss of the base, he might find out about the message she had just sent. So to prevent him from finding out, she has to kill him. Too bad that the only chance she has to kill him is when he was climbing back from a cliff together with her husband. And so she cuts the rope, killing them both.
Yeah. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
So you like these kind of stories? But
I don't like this.
Pavlov's like, yeah, give me more. Oh.
I mean, I feel like it was just so fitting.
I was like, this is too much. This is surely not realistic and over the top. And then I read more and I was like, yeah, this is very real.
Yeah.
Damn.
So this is kind of like the main background to her story.
Yeah, so this is the one storyline.
Yeah. The other one is the one in the present, which is based on Wang Miao again.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Thank you for saying it. I don't even remember his name.
Yeah.
We just said before we started recording that I didn't even mention him in this synopsis because he's such insignificant.
Yes.
Like, he's very important in the whole story. Like it's all about him and it's all revolves around him. But his character is basically non-existent.
Yes.
It's just to drive the story forward.
Yes. He's one of the worst main characters I've ever seen in a book. And he's so irrelevant that in the second and third book, the author refuses to use his name. I don't know if you noticed this, but in the second and third book, his name is never mentioned.
Oh, I'm very bad with names.
And
so,
even like characters who met him in the first book and then appeared in the second book, they mention him, but they don't use his name. They only reference him.
That completely
vaguely.
blew past me. I'm very bad with character names. Sorry.
Anyway, he is just this guy who researches like nanomaterials. He gets contacted by the police because a lot of scientists are
committing suicide.
Yeah, are committing suicide and
being
like
depressed and despair.
Yes.
Yeah, they got some of Pavlov's medicine.
Yes, including Ye Wenjie's daughter, who was the fiancée of another physicist who is the main character of another story by Cixin Liu called The Ball Lightning.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's also a very strange story. Like, that guy's family got killed by ball lightning. They also mentioned ball lightning weapon several times in the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a nice reference. I didn't know.
Anyway, this guy learns about a group of scientists who's called Group for Advancement of Humanity. Yeah, he has been in contact with this group, and so many scientists part of this group had committed suicide. So the police is either afraid that he will commit suicide or that this organization is somehow connected to it, so he might be behind it.
Yeah.
And he starts experiencing all sorts of weird shit. Like he starts seeing numbers and sort of a countdown on pictures and then on his own eyes.
This part of the story I was kind of like losing interest because it was this mystery about he was taking pictures and he saw like a countdown and then he saw it like everywhere and he was getting mad and then he saw it even in his eyes.
Yeah. This was like my first main complaint about the book.
Okay.
So the wife of the main character exists and he has a wife and a son and they are mentioned only at the beginning of the story. They appear, they do nothing. They're just scared because he's acting weirdly. And then they are never referenced again.
This is a weakness of this story and trilogy, definitely, because they try to do something with the characters and they do it poorly and the characters don't go anywhere and they're like kind of one-dimensional. And then when they stop talking about the characters and talk about the concepts and the sci-fi, it's really good. So yeah, it's kind of weird, this part of the book.
Yeah, the main character, this Wang Miao, he is so relevant and he has a family. I don't know why he has a family. Why does he have
It's just like a forgettable part and the point is scientists are going crazy for reasons.
Yes. Eventually he finds a hint with like essentially a VR game.
That's the point that got me really interested and that's why I finished it. If this wasn't there, I would have given up.
So the game is called Three Body. It's a VR game. And he enters this game, which is very psychedelic. It reminded me a lot of Children of Dune.
No, God damn it.
Yes. So when in Children of Dune, a character is drugged heavily, he sees stuff kind of like what we see inside this game.
That's true.
Yeah.
I didn't find any of the Dune references in this. So
it was important. I worked hard for it. Anyway, the book part was probably my favorite part of the whole first book. I think it was such an interesting concept, and the fact that there are all of these historical characters and all of these different eras and the chaotic eras, and essentially this game has chaotic eras and stable eras. Chaotic eras are like either super cold or super hot, and everyone dies.
So by eras, you mean the game environment keeps changing rapidly?
Yeah, and then there are stable eras, which are like normal. The goal of the game is to find why there are stable eras and chaotic eras.
It's like the ultimate puzzle game.
Yes.
And the characters are scientists.
Yeah.
So there are famous people from history.
And they try all sorts of different approaches. Like they try a deterministic approach, they try a mystical approach, they try a philosophical approach.
Which is really cool because they get into how people understood the universe and how people observe the stars, and it gets into like a kind of a history lesson about space and physics.
Yes, it's really, really interesting. But there's also Newton fighting with Leibniz, which is always very fun. The succession of the chaotic eras and stable eras, I think, is kind of related to the Marxist view of history.
Oh.
Because the Marxist view of history was based on Hegel's view of the universe, which essentially was that there was a thing, then there is the opposite of that thing, and then those two things, essentially something after alienating itself reaches like its final status. Marx uses that view to explain history and saying that history goes through these cycles where an equilibrium is reached, then the worst of that word emerges. Essentially, there is like a revolution.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And then there is a chaos period, and then there is another stable period.
I thought you were talking about matter and planets or something.
No.
Okay, I understand.
No, I'm just talking about like philosophy.
Yeah.
So according to Marx, there is history can be read through this succession of stable eras and chaotic eras, where like every time there is a revolution, and then after the revolution, there is an improvement in the condition of the poorest people, which connects to the idea that at the end, the people will conquer the world or something like that. No, I'm joking, but that's the whole idea. So it reminded me of that, and I think it is kind of relevant because, as we said before, the story is based on these two storylines, and the first one starts during the Cultural Revolution in China, and the second one is in essentially present-day China, and clearly the first part, even the title of the chapter is Chaos, so it's the Years of Chaos.
Okay.
So essentially the first part is representing a chaotic era, and the second part is representing a stable era. So I feel like there was a kind of a reference to what China went through.
Okay.
And if you know about Chinese history, this was also very relevant as one of the best YouTube videos ever. Again, said again and again, was China is unite again, China broke again, China is unite again.
Okay, you can link it in the podcast notes.
Yes.
Thank you for explaining that. I had no idea about any of this.
Yeah.
I'm not very well versed in history, so thank you.
No problems. But at the end, our dear main character finds out that the reason why there are these chaotic and stable eras is because there are 3 stars, and the planet is orbiting 3 different stars. And
this game is like a very intriguingly described system for solving a puzzle. It's also slowly introducing concepts about the aliens.
Yeah.
That you don't know that they are the aliens. It's kind of clever. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like those cults when they approach you and they just start asking you, are you doing, is your life doing well? And then slowly they start introducing like their religious stuff.
So there are many characters in the game that you meet, and at first it seems like they're just like NPC characters that don't matter, and then strange things happen, like when the eras change, the people dehydrate and rehydrate, which is a very strange concept. So basically, when the era is chaotic and everything's gonna burn down because the sun is too close to the planet, people basically hibernate, and they hibernate in a way that they get rid of all liquids in their body, and then they get stored in like a safe vault.
Yes! That was pretty funny.
Which is how the aliens are, which you don't know first, and that's why it's kind of intriguing.
Yes, and then the ending of the game is that they explain how, actually the 3-body problem has no solution, and at first it seems like the civilization has no chances of surviving, also because the planet is eventually going to be dragged into the sun, into one of the suns.
It's been a while since depression points.
Yes.
There was kind of a positive part of the book, and now depression hit.
Yes, so they find out that, and
so there's a couple of twists, like things start going to the surface. So this is the part of the book where you get into it, because there were all these confusing like numbers and countdowns and bullshit, and now you finally like get things explained. So it turns out the aliens, turns out we know that they are here. turns out that they can dehydrate and rehydrate, which is already like a meme online. Rehydrate! It's like a section in the supermarket that says rehydrate. It drinks.
Yes.
And turns out a secret group on Earth have designed the game for several reasons. One of them was, if I'm not mistaken, to try to help the aliens to solve this problem.
Yes.
So if some genius connected into this game and solved the puzzle of how to predict the eras, then it would help them to survive.
Yeah.
Because every time the era changes, the aliens just die and burn down, and they have to rebuild the society, which is a very interesting part of the game, that the whole civilization rebuilds itself.
Every time is a little bit different.
So that's really interesting, and I wasn't sure if that's what's happening on their planet.
Yeah, I think so. Because it says that one of the reasons why their society is structured this way, when you get more introduced to the aliens, you learn that one of the reasons why they are their civilization is structured that way is because they had to endure all of these chaotic.
I wasn't sure. There wasn't any explained line or specifically described if this is just like super accurate to them or if it's just like an approximation simulation.
I feel like it was kind of like both.
I guess you should assume that what you learn is what the aliens actually are like.
Yeah.
Yes.
But at the same time, like, of course, like, because it's all represented using human history, it's kind of weird.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that makes sense for us to understand, like, okay, their scientists in their history, in their civilization would be the best to be trying to solve this, and they would be failing. Yeah, so now finally we can say that it's Trisolaris is the name of the
humans give to this planet, and they need to escape their planet before it gets burned.
Exactly.
Yeah. That seems kind of important.
And so that's a secret society that made this game. And then there is the same, I'm kind of hazy on this, that is the ETO. Is it the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So ETO stands for
Earth Trisolaris Organization. And the boss of the ETO is Ye Wenjie. Yeah. Which I kind of expected at that point, but it was very cool.
I forgot she existed at the time.
Really? But she was one of the two main characters.
No, I thought that she would be too far in the past. Like, I thought she wouldn't come back. I thought they would, like, reference her, or she would have been, like, the founder or something, but she wouldn't be in the story at this point.
But, like, the main character, the other main character meets her.
Yeah, of course. Until he met her, I wouldn't think she would come back.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah, she's the boss together with American guy, who's the antagonist of this book, which is the first sign of Chinese people, good. Westerners, antagonists.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of shit of this kind in the book. Yes.
I mean, also, to be fair, in this book there are a lot of bad Chinese people. So this other guy is a guy who, despite the fact that he's a billionaire, essentially he is a super fundamentalist environmentalist. He believes that, humans are essentially a plague for the planet, and he wants to give the planet to the Trisolarans. So he wants humanity to die, and so
exactly. Yeah. So this is all like escalating because we have learned at this point that it's gonna be about 400 years that they come to Earth, or that's
it would take about like 450 years.
I'm just thinking when they revealed this.
Yeah, they revealed it like towards the end, but it's fine. Like,
but this organization, the ETO, the Earth Trisolaris organization, they are communicating with Trisolaris.
Yes.
At this point already.
Yes.
Which is strange because the messages take forever to send because the message don't reply to how many years?
Well, it takes 4 years because it's 4 light years away.
Yeah, so it was explained that the Trisolaris planet, it's like kind of a lucky distance, so it takes only 4 years, which is like one of the nearest other solar systems that you could contact. So they were the first to receive the message amplified by the sun.
Yes. And the other thing is, this is when we get introduced to the Sophons, which are like one of the main plot points of the whole trilogy. And we get introduced to how they build the Sophons on Trisolaris, which is kind of insane.
Yeah, this section is insane. And before we get into it, so just to say what the Sophon is, Paolo's already like holding his head in both hands. But it's interesting. I have some notes about the Chinese and English versions.
Yeah.
And in Chinese, the Sophon, so the kanji means particle and smart. But it also means like a common name that's a common girl's name in China. So
in Japan, I think.
Maybe also in Japan.
Yeah.
But
really?
The person who wrote these notes is a guy who's half Chinese, half English on Reddit. So it's Chiyoko. And that's why in some illustrations or like promotional materials for this, they have a picture of a cute like girl in a context that I didn't get. and it's because it's the Sophon.
Yeah, that's fine.
So before we get into the insanity part, Sophon is just a small particle that, let's just say for now, it can be sent through space really fast.
Yeah. Because
it's super, super, super small. And you can just, because it's so small, I guess in real life you have like neutrinos or something.
Well, it's the size of a proton. So it's...
So you can propel it through space like very fast, and that's how they can reach, how Trisolaris with their more advanced technology can reach Earth and communicate with them.
Yes. Yeah, so they send these two Sophons to Earth, and they can communicate through quantum entanglement, which is a real thing. It's one of the most fascinating thing about quantum theory. Like, it's not fully understood yet, but if it's proven and if it's true, it's incredibly amazing. Because essentially the way quantum entanglement... This is so difficult to say.
Entangled.
Yes. Entangled, yes. So if you have two particles which are quantum entangled, they always show the same thing, even though they are at opposite sides of the universe. Essentially, distance doesn't matter anymore for these two particles, which is incredibly amazing, but also, like, it hasn't been proven yet. But yeah, in this book, like, this has been proven. And so these Sophons can communicate in real time with Trisolaris, even though Trisolaris is 4 light years away. And they are on Earth for 2 reasons. Well, in the first book, they are mainly for one reason, which is to essentially block research using particle accelerators, which means that humans cannot advance their physics.
Yeah, so basically what goes down is that Trisolaris needs to leave the planet because they're going to be exterminated, killed by the 3 suns.
Yes.
And the only place that's inhabitable is Earth.
Yeah.
So they want to conquer Earth. And how do you conquer another alien civilization? You trump their scientific development.
Yes.
That's why they're doing it.
And the other reason is communication and spying. This will become more relevant in the next books, especially the spying part. But yeah, in the first book, they go through all of this process just to make 2 of them. There is a very relevant part for the rest of the trilogy, which is the fact that they need to open a proton into higher dimensions.
This section is insane. It's either genius or mad.
Yeah, I think it becomes much, much more interesting after you read the 3rd book.
That's true.
Yeah.
So maybe we should keep this part at the end of the discussion, just so we can complete this, and then we can... I think this is going to be very messy to talk about.
Yes.
So let's keep this research into Sophons and how they made them into at the end.
Yes.
So turns out the ETO has been withholding secret messages from the Trisolaran killer army. Whatever. And because people slowly learn this, and inside the ETO, of course, people have different opinions. They are divided into certain groups with certain radical philosophies.
Yeah, so there are 3 groups.
So they are divided into Adventists, led by Evans, that's the rich guy.
Yeah.
And he wants to destroy humanity. They just want to die.
Yeah, they want the advent of 3 Solaris.
Do they want to die, or do they want to?
Yeah, they want to die.
They're just
they
like,
don't
okay,
care.
fuck people, we're dead.
Yeah.
7 depression points.
I mean, on one side it was believable, like it was understandable, and I think it's very interesting.
The fact that there could be even a consideration that these people could exist is depressing.
I think they exist. Like, I think in real life, I'm sure that these people would exist. The point I find, I don't want to say controversial, but I'm not sure if I believe it or not, is most of these people in the book are said to be rich and successful people.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. Like Evans. Like Evans was like this super rich person, and the other people were like, successful writers, successful scientists, successful politicians.
Yeah.
Which is why the ETO was able to survive and gather resources for such a long time, because they had people working for them in the high places. Yeah. And that I found kind of strange. Like, why would these people who have everything want the destruction of humanity?
Yeah, it's strange.
And it's possible, but it's interesting.
So then the second group is redemptionists who want to solve the problem and help Trisolaris. That's the part that developed the game. And then there is survivors. Basically, the rest of the people are, fuck this, we just gonna do whatever to survive. Just don't kill us, come and don't kill us, please.
Yes.
That's them.
Yeah, the whole ETO part was very interesting, very difficult to imagine how it would break down.
This is like I don't want to say original, but like very unusual take on reaction to there being aliens.
Yeah.
Because usually it's like, okay, we're gonna fight them, or we're gonna join them, or we're gonna learn from them, blah, blah. But never was there any, like, well-done sci-fi story where they would actually go into the details how people would really feel in context of their society and government.
For some of them, like, essentially Trisolarans were kind of like a new religion. They call them the Lord.
That's true. And also, okay, so we contacted aliens and immediately everybody has to keep it a secret, but not from the public, but from just everybody except a small fanatic group, which is so scary, like, to think about. This is another, like, of those, like, hard truth, like, facts. If it actually happened, it would probably be that. It would probably be a very small isolated group that already, it already might be happening. Like, it's, we wouldn't know.
Yeah, as far as we know, it might have already happened.
This is the most realistic scenario because they wouldn't want to tell anybody, especially in the context of, like, the other civilization, alien civilization being more superior and all this.
I always find it difficult, like, to imagine that would be the case, to be honest, for different reasons. Like, I don't believe the fact that aliens, like, if they have visited Earth in the last, like, 100 years, I don't really believe the fact that it would be possible to actually hide them.
That's exactly what I meant to say. So I think this is actually exactly what will happen, like, in my opinion, that they would try to hide it really hard, but of course it would be found out very quickly, which did in this book, which I give kudos to this book because, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like it wasn't really completely hidden. Like, the ETO was not, like, they had a big boat and they went around. They had a big ship and they went around the world. So it was not like a complete secret.
But they were still not announcing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the boat is just moving around and it's threatening to destroy all the messages if you attack the boat. And there's like a whole security system and it's super...
Yeah, I felt like there was another weak point of the story, to be honest. Just the... we need to recover these messages and we don't know how to do it. And then we come up with this solution to...
Okay, so just to catch up with the story, we kind of didn't say it. So the countdown that the person who was going mad was seeing was Trisolaris using the cell phone to write messages, like move the cell phone around, which you can do. You can, like, when the photograph is developed, or you can, like, write something on it.
That was like, okay, quick tangent, sorry.
Okay.
Like, the fact that the guy took pictures with a film for no reason other than the fact that he was doing this.
Yeah, that was
like,
too much.
It was so bullshit, like, who?
Too much. But this gets finally explained. So he saw this countdown, and it was them using the cell phone to scare people, specifically scientists. And I assume they didn't show more interesting cases where they scared scientists into committing suicide. I imagine they were doing other things to other scientists, like they killed themselves. And they were doing more imaginative and creative things than numbers counting down. But there's this part of this book that gets really dramatic. When the countdown goes down, what will happen? And then there is some message that goes, somebody has it written on their eyes, because they write the numbers on the retina with the cell phone.
Yeah.
Which is very scary. And they write, the universe will flicker. And that happens when the countdown goes down, and they have this, like, device to monitor something, I forget.
The cosmic background radiation.
Oh, okay. And they monitor the radiation, and when the countdown went down, the whole universe just super radiates, and they see, like, insane numbers. Yeah. And it's because...
Like, they messed with the results. Like, it was fake.
It was fake, so never mind.
Yeah, like, the cell phones essentially... Okay. This was actually... Like, at the beginning I thought, like, this is kind of, like, disappointing and stupid. That's what I thought at the beginning. Like, you know, actually this was just the cell phone mingling with things. But at the same time, like, I feel like it was to show that this was the scary point. Like, scientists could not rely on their observation, like, instruments anymore. They could not rely on their experiments anymore. And if they can do that, they can make science progress.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, if you take it at face value, it's kind of like, why are they going through, like, through this length just to...
I guess that's just an alien... You can explain it like an alien point of view, that they think that would scare people a lot. Yeah. Which it kind of...
It does. Like, the guy was going crazy. And then he met the... Like... Okay, so... What's your opinion on dashi?
Yeah, I like it.
Aside from the fact that it's called, like, the Japanese fish soup.
Dashi is like stock, right? It's
It's like a fish stock broth.
Yeah, I like him.
Because
that's
I
the
feel
only
like,
character that's a character.
I feel like sometimes I liked him, sometimes I liked him. Some other times, he was so over the top as a character, it felt like he felt completely out of the story.
He was a person who needed to exist. Like, there are people like that. I think that he's not unrealistic.
No. don't know. I'm not saying it's unrealistic. It's just that he doesn't really go with the tone of the story.
Definitely not, and that's why I remembered him the most, because it's actually in character. It's because he doesn't go with the story, because he's a character. The other people are not characters.
Yes. Fair enough. Yeah. He's an interesting character, and he's like this police officer with this insane. Essentially, he's a Chinese fusion by of Sherlock Holmes and Tony Stark.
No, I think he's more dumb.
Like, not because he's super smart, but he has like this insane intuition, but then he has like the super arrogance.
I think Tony Stark is like really stretching it. I think it's more like secret police and like Van Damme or something. It's like he's like obnoxious. He's
obnoxious, and he doesn't miss the chance to tell the Americans that they lost the Vietnam War while Chinese won the Sino-Vietnamese War, according to China, not according to Vietnam.
But of course, the government finds out about the ETO and they attack them, and shit goes down. People die. Yeah, so to finish the story, the government, or just people other than the ETO, have to get these secret messages from the Trisolaris. And so they have to get this boat that keeps, like, escaping. They cannot get it because as soon as they attempt to attack it, they would destroy the messages. That's what they keep threatening. Because the guy who wants to destroy humanity is in power.
Yes.
So he wants to help Trisolaris as much as possible. And if they attack him, he's just gonna blow everything up, destroy it, delete it.
Yeah.
And then that's what he wants. So...
Yeah, I felt like the whole ending was structured just so that first there could be an ending.
Exactly.
And second, it felt like the last level of a video game.
Yeah, and
exactly. You have all of these extra steps you have to go through. But it didn't really add anything to the story.
I absolutely agree, but I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed it.
No, I didn't mind it. It's just that it felt too forced.
Like the story needed a climax of some sort, and this served it in a creative way. And I felt exactly what you're saying, but I let it do what they wanted to do to me.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it wasn't bad. It didn't ruin the book or anything. If it had saved time or wasted on the universe will figure and the wife and the child,
it wouldn't have to be there at all.
Wang Miao.
But then again, it's a good time to stop the story. Whether they stop it, I understand why they did it like that, because if they took any stuff from the second book and put it in the first book, it would be so weird.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I just wanted more of the video game.
That's true. Yeah, if they spent less time on the number countdown and less time on all this flickering and stuff, that's definitely the weak part of the book.
Yeah, so, the video game would have been so much better. Yeah.
So the guy who I don't remember the name of, and he sounds like a cat is meowing.
Yeah, Wang Miao.
Yeah, so he is a nanotechnology specialist, and he develops materials, just nanomaterials. So they come up with an idea to set a trap and stretch strings of nanomaterial that's super durable and sturdy. And basically, they're gonna cut the boat up in slices. They explain in detail. So they're gonna force the boat to go through a narrow part of the sea, and on each side they're gonna put some hidden poles, and they're gonna just stretch a bunch of just very sharp, not able to see nano strings. When the boat goes through it, it's just going to be cut up into slices, which is kind of original. I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was an interesting point. And it was a good way to use the main character.
It felt to me like they were thinking about this from the beginning or something, because it almost felt to me like when he was writing it, he wanted to have a final battle, confrontation. And I felt like he was almost okay, in the movie, this is gonna be the shit. This was this is the scene that people are gonna wait for. And I've almost felt like this is why he wrote it like that, because he wanted it to be a movie too.
And it's also in the trailer.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. In the trailer it was very bad, but it's still there. That's the only part I didn't like in the trailer.
Also, at some point, his research was given all of this importance, so that the ETO had to stop him for whatever reason. But I didn't really understand why. Why was his research on this material so important?
I took it as the Trisolarans know that this research leads to stuff, and they don't want us to know where it leads or how it leads or if it leads. And they just want to stop the scientific advancement of anything significant. And this is significant at the time for some reason. So that's why they want to stop it.
I don't know. That's...
Yeah, it's far-fetched.
It's kind of unclear.
Yeah. So anyways, they cut up the boat. Everybody dies. Depression points. But not that much. And they save the box with the messages successfully. And they read about all the stuff that's been going on in between the ETO and the Trisolarians.
Yeah.
So they find a lot of information about Trisolaris, and they don't learn much, but they talk a little bit about the society of the aliens, and they talk about the guy who sent the pacifist, who sent the don't reply message, and what happened to him. That was kind of interesting. And then finally, Trisolarians are like, okay, you destroyed the ETO, fuck you. And fuck you hard. I'm not sure what kind of messages they sent before.
The only message
bugs.
they send is your bugs.
Yeah, so
they didn't say anything else.
I thought they said more.
They only say your bugs.
Yeah, so people are just freaking out, and they learn. Definitely, they know now that the Trisolaran fleet has left Trisolaris, and they're going to Earth to attack and conquer Earth, and it's gonna take about 400 years or 450 years.
Yeah, something like that.
So now we know they're coming, but it's in 450 years.
Yeah, which I remember when I saw that, I was so excited for the next 2 books. Because, again, in most books and stories, usually you learn about the danger when the danger is imminent.
Okay.
Like, the aliens are about to arrive, like, maybe you have like 1 year, but even in 1 year, like, it's not so long. Usually, like, the aliens are here. Okay.
Yeah.
That's like what most stories do. But in this case, the idea that that this incredible danger will reach the Earth 400 years later, that's such a long time. Like, it opens so many doors to, like, okay, what will humanity do?
It's a very
400
creative
years, right?
setup for the story, which works very well in its favor.
Yeah, I agree. I was super excited about that ending. Yeah, I think it was really cool.
And that's how it would probably happen. If something would contact us physically, it would probably be known much sooner than it would happen.
Yeah.
Because if the alien species, society, whatever, is intelligent and advanced enough to reach us, then they definitely have some sort of way to tell us and contact us or know about us sooner than they are here. And it's probably much farther distance reaching than what we can even imagine. So that would be very logical that this would happen.
Yeah, that's kind of like the thing we were talking about in the previous podcast is that, the speed of light is like this unsurmountable barrier.
Okay.
Even if you move at the speed of light, going from one star to another takes years.
It goes into all these like thoughts and ideas and discussions about what does it even mean to exist in perspective from the point of view of somebody else who cannot be reached with the light. Like there was a question I remember Neil deGrasse Tyson answered, like, is there gravitational influence from an object that hasn't reached the other object with its light yet? So from the point of view of the first object, the other object is so far that it doesn't exist yet. Because the light hasn't reached you. Yeah. So by that logic, it wouldn't influence you by anything because it couldn't have reached you yet. Yeah. Even light could have reached you, so how would gravity reach you?
Yeah, because it's too far.
So this is so like strangely,
Yeah, it is really interesting. It's one of the ideas of like how in the next X billion of years, if humanity still exists, they will not know that there is a universe outside the Milky Way. Yeah, which is insane.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so crazy. But yeah, so the characters are depressed. Yeah, and. They just have this one message that we're coming for you, we're gonna crush you hard, and you're bugs. Yes. And then they go drinking, and the guy that's the only character in this book,
Dashi.
So Dashi is like, yeah, you fucking scientists always moaning about, let's just get drunk like little bugs. And that's a funny part.
Yeah, let's get drunk and then sleep like good bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. I think like the ending and the idea, like, humanity has been fighting against bugs forever, and that's cool.
Yeah, so they mentioned that bugs are very resilient, and we've been fighting them for centuries, but they're still alive, even though we're superior. So we still stand a chance like humanity. Yeah. So it's kind of an upbeat ending.
Yeah, I feel like the first book ends like in this positive note, kind of like giving you hope. Like, it looks grim. But humanity has hope. It's kind of like, at the end of the first Lord of the Rings movie, not the book, but in the movie, there is Frodo and Sam looking at Mordor in the distance. Of course, it's Mordor, so it will be like super dangerous and scary, but at the same time, it's like this beautiful sunset, so it's kind of like reassuring and giving you hope that, their mission can succeed. Yeah. I felt the same way. I felt like that same kind of feeling.
Yeah, at the end of the first book, I wasn't crushed. I wasn't depressed. I was like, okay, this was interesting. I'm up for the next.
Yes.
I'm up for the depression.
You didn't know what would
Little
come
did I know.
Yes.
What would happen. So that's the whole story. And we might quickly mention the part we skipped, just to have it complete. Yeah. If you want to just stop listening now, go ahead, because it's gonna be nonsense. But there is a
yeah.
but there's a part of this book that's really out there, which I appreciate. I like those parts in sci-fi stories.
Yes.
So when they get into like a development cycle of the sophon and how the technology, the reason for this is to show us that the Trisolaran technological level is so far beyond us, and they want to explain how they got there, because I guess they wanted to justify how they are able to be so advanced, even though they get burned to crisp every time and they have to rebuild. So somehow they managed by controlling dimensions, which is brought up in many sci-fi stories. And every time I read about it, it's always very, I don't know how to say this in a short. It's just weird. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's strange also in this book, but like this is one of those things where you read it when you read the first book and it has a meaning, and you read it after you've read the whole 3 books and it has a completely different meaning.
It serves its purpose.
Yeah.
So what they do is they start researching like unfolding objects into other dimensional...
Into higher dimensional state, essentially.
But isn't it lower dimensional state?
Well, they wanted to do both. They wanted to control it.
So, for instance, they take a proton or something, and they like... So the proton is like in 3D, but they unfold it into like 2D or 1D. So they start with 1D.
Yeah.
So somehow they take something and they like unfold it into 1D, which is like a scientific experiment. This is what I want to talk about. I don't think this makes any sense. Like I'm very like people talk about this, like there's a 4th dimension, there's a whatever dimension, and they explain all this. I understand how it works, but I don't understand who decided it's possible. Like I don't think it's possible, but never mind. I can't tell this like in short. Can't say this in short. But whatever, they manage somehow to unfold, infold, transform, move in the other dimension. I don't really know what's happening. But somehow they move the object into 1D, which makes it... Okay, so 1D in 3D, what does that even mean? So I thought it was a point, but in this story, it's like a string.
Yeah.
So that already doesn't make sense to me. But okay, so let's say it's a bunch of objects that are stringed together and they're all one-dimensional. Maybe that makes sense. And they can't touch it because they're 3D, but this is 1D, so you can go through it.
Yeah, that's one of the something that again in this first book doesn't really like, it's just weird, but it will be very important, which is like things at different dimensional level can't interact with each other. So a 3D person can't touch a 2D
but then thing. They interact with each other in the subsequent books. They go from 4 to 3D and they touch each other.
Yeah. Like you can use, like they can interact, but only if they enter that dimension. That's the idea. So, because I feel like that's why this is so important for the
sequels,
3rd book.
Okay.
Because spoilers for the 3rd book.
Oh, my God!
So in the first book, at one point, they open the proton into 2 dimensions, and it becomes this giant flat thing.
Yes.
And then like shapes start coming out. And they're like this shape civilization, like
they evolve into madmen.
Like I don't know, have you ever read the book Flatland?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like Flatland.
Yes.
So, and then they destroy it. So they interact with this 2D world because they brought a 2D item into the 3D world. So the 2D and the 3D could interact. All right.
Oh, I see.
Because 2D was going into an higher dimension, they wouldn't get destroyed because they had 2 dimensions. This world had 3 dimensions,
that makes sense.
So they had enough space. But then in the 3rd book, and first they go 3D, they go into 4D, and so again they can exist. It's super fucking weird, but they can exist because they are 3D and there are 4 dimensions. Okay. But then when the opposite happens, which is to say that a 2D bubble starts to expand and 3D people start to touch the 2D space, because they are 3D and they are going into 2D, they don't have the 3rd dimension anymore, and so they die.
But that's also weird to me, but okay.
That's how I understood it.
Yeah, but it makes sense. Like you said it. Yes, like you said. I don't even think it's a spoiler. We didn't say what happens. But what happens in the first book is that they keep experimenting. So the first time they make like a mistake and they have a bunch of string like flying everywhere, like a bunch of shit. Yes. And they can't deal with it because I guess they can't interact with it. And like Paolo said, it's an object that was 3D and then they forced it into 1D. So then they experiment with 2D and they accidentally suck in a whole nation of civilization aliens into their world.
Yes.
Which is the weirdest part. And there's like shapes and eyes and they keep like moving into 2D and attacking them.
Yeah,
and
they shoot lasers.
And war breaks out, they shoot lasers. It's insane.
Yeah.
And they do genocide.
Yes.
They like, fuck them, they're 2D, whatever the fuck, we don't have time for this. We're gonna get burned with the third sun again, so just go on, just kill them. Yeah. And they just killed a whole nation, society, whatever.
Yeah, it was civilization.
Race. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Let me check it. So they wanted to get 2 dimensions. The first time they got 1 dimension, and it was the string and then the snowflakes. The shapes and the weird stuff, they were 3D shapes, and they were like they unfolded the proton into 3D, into 3 dimensions. So their goal was 2D.
Okay.
So first they did it
too much.
They did it too much. It was 1D. Then they didn't do enough, so it was 3D.
Okay, so they have a 3D object that's a proton.
Yeah.
And they want to make it a 2D object.
Yes.
Okay. And they want to do it. I get the part why they want to do it and what happens then.
Yeah.
I just don't get the mechanics of the process. But anyway, just to explain for you listeners, they want to do it so they can have a miniature thing unfold into another dimension so they can like put stuff on it and then fold it back up.
Yeah.
So what basically I'm saying is they want to make the cell phone so they unfold it like a miniature thing and then they put like a computer on it and like some microphones or whatever you need in the cell phone, and then they fold it back up to this miniature thing.
Yeah, they want to make, because like after it's unfolded into 2D, the proton becomes incredibly big, like like as big like half the planet or something like that.
Which also didn't make sense to me, but okay.
Yeah, I mean I understand why, but like because like inside, like it's one of those things where like if you take a sponge. And if you try to calculate the surface of a sponge, then it's like bigger than Japan or something like that. Yeah. The idea is like after they unfold the proton, it becomes in 2 dimensions, it becomes like this super flat and incredibly big thing, and then they can put circuits inside that thing.
Exactly.
So it becomes like this super big, super powerful computer, which after it's folded again is as big as a proton. That's
the whole point of this insanity discussion.
Yes.
But that's the significance later and the whole mechanics of folding, unfolding through dimensions. What Paolo said was very insightful. So going from lower dimensions into higher dimensions is okay. And going to lower dimensions from higher dimensions makes you just...
You die.
You just die because you cannot have the spatial dimension. So it's like if you crushed a person into a flat piece of paper.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
there is one more thing I wanted to talk about. One thing that I really liked about the first book, and one thing that I liked much more than the second book, and in a way also the third book in this way, is the writing style.
Okay.
Mainly for 2 reasons. First one is, it's something that I mentioned before when we were talking about confessions, is I like books who are using different way the story is presented. So in this book we have some chapters where it's like normal narration, some chapters where it's kind of like reading documents, some chapters where it's kind of like an interview, some chapters where it's just the flow of conscience of one of the characters.
Okay.
So I really like that. That's something that it's just something I personally like. I don't think
it makes it more varied and more interesting to read. That's true.
And the second thing is the way science is treated in this one. Of course, the science in this book is the closest one to real science compared to the second and third books. But I feel like the explanation it gives. Why can't I speak English?
You need to say correct.
The explanation it gives.
You want to say gave.
Yeah, I want to say gave and gives. So I gaves. The explanation it gives are interesting to the point where you can understand them, even though you're not necessarily like me, like I don't know much about physics or science or anything. But it's not so dumbed down in a way where it's kind of like ridiculous, kind of like a Hollywood movie.
Definitely not dumbed down, yes.
Yes, and also it leaves like that just little veil of mystery on science, where it's like you are left in awe as a person who's not a scientist, so at like the marvels of science, but at the same time you feel like you can grasp a little, because I feel like the biggest problem with science in some movies, which I mean I understand it's not the point of like if you're going to watch Avengers, like like it doesn't matter.
It's awful.
Yeah, but in those movies and in bad sci-fi, they explain science in a way which is either is like overly complicated in a way where no one can understand it.
Exactly.
And so it doesn't make any sense. Or in a way where it's so dumbed down, where it's kind of like, so you're explaining like this super difficult concept, like in Interstellar, and they're like, oh, you just do this, and you just punch through the paper. It doesn't make any sense. Like, we're talking about one of the most difficult things, like, in the universe, and you're just saying, it's like this. Like, what? Are you serious? I understand you need to explain it to big audience, but I feel like this book really strikes that like, perfect balance between making it accessible for people who, like, don't study science like me, but at the same time not making it stupid. Not making like, this is like this super complicated thing, but a child could understand it.
It's very easy to understand, and it's not laughably, stupidly dumbed down.
Yeah.
And it's also not doing what Pavel was talking about. It's not doing the thing like, okay, we're gonna do techno mumble jumble, and you're just supposed to pretend it's doing something you don't know, and that's how he explained it.
Yeah.
That's bullshit, yes.
Yeah, I appreciate it in this book, like he went through the effort to do it. And I think this is what, especially the second book, was missing. And the other thing is something I noticed in this book, which is part of his writing style. He uses so many metaphors. Like everything is, he saw this, which was like the sunset at midnight. It's like, he saw this, which was like seeing the first snow on a mountain in the spring morning. Like, why? Why? You don't need to compare everything to something else.
It didn't bother me that much. I remember it, yes.
I noticed it so much. It was just like everywhere. It was just like, come on, just stop, please. You can just describe something. You don't need to compare it to something else. But now I'm just speculating, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of Chinese literature. Like, it gives me that vibe that maybe in like Chinese literature is common to compare things, especially to natural phenomena.
Sense. Yeah.
But yeah.
Possibly. Okay, I think we've exhausted
everything, including our energies.
I think we've said what you want to say. I hope you got something out of this, if you're still listening. As usual, at the end, I wanted to read some quotes. So just very, very quickly. We've said them, but just to sum up, because I think it's like a nice bookend to an episode. I'm gonna read the easy quote, and then Pavel's gonna read the difficult quote.
Okay.
And the easy quote is, "You are bugs."
Yes. Yeah.
This is also the quote, "Let's go drinking and then go back to sleep like good bugs."
Yeah, that was a good quote.
This is a quote from Dashi, which I liked, just like something funny. He said, "I'm a simple man without a lot of complicated twists and turns. Look down my throat and you can see out of my ass."
That was very interesting.
That's a joke.
Yeah.
But the main quote that's, I think, the most memorable, we already talked about, but just to end, so if you don't mind.
Yeah, don't mind. Is it possible that the relationship between humanity and evil is similar to the relationship between the ocean and an iceberg floating on its surface? Both the ocean and the iceberg are made out of the same material. That the iceberg seems separate is only because it is in a different form. In reality, it is but a part of the vast ocean. It is impossible to expect a moral awakening from humankind itself, just like it was impossible to expect humans to lift off the earth by pulling up their own hair. To achieve moral awakening required a force outside the human race.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
So thanks so much for listening. I'm gonna be curious how many people keep going with us until the end. But it was the second part of our 4 ducks problem now.
Hopefully. Maybe we can do second and third in only one podcast and go back on track.
That's too much.
That's too much? Yeah. I guess it's like over like 1,500 pages.
We've managed to do like a 40-minute the trilogy intro and then about an hour the first book, so that worked.
Yeah.
Right, so see you in the next one, and thanks a lot for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
And the final score, 28 depression points, minus 7 pacifist points. So official depression score of our podcast is 21. Thank you for listening. Rate us on Apple Podcasts and see you in the next episode, where we look at The Dark Forest, the second book of this trilogy.